Hello everyone, today is 20th of November, now it's 10 o'clock in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for a day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. And there are quite a few very significant developments and news that I'd like to share with you for this moment. Although before I start, let me remind you that quite often, almost every other day, I have a second news updates. And there are some additional programs on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And if you are looking for more news from Russia, more commentary, you're more than welcome to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. Links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, your subscription will be great support for this project. That being said, let's go through some news now. And well, we have quite a number of breaking news, by the way, this morning. First of all, of course, information about first long-range missile strike deep into Russian territory by US-made ATACMS missiles. Yesterday, late afternoon, Russian media start reporting, based on Russian Defense Ministry's statements, that armed forces of Ukraine, formerly armed forces of Ukraine, in reality, a US militaries, launch 6 ATACMS missiles to strike a military facility in the Bryansk region of the Russian Federation. And according to Defense Ministry, 5 ATACMS were intercepted by S-400 and Panzer S-1 air defense systems. Another one, 6th one, was damaged and failed not far away from this military object and caused some fire that was extinguished rapidly. Of course, this news is, indicates a major escalation in Ukrainian crisis and major escalation between collective West and Russia, between US and Russia. A few days ago, news came in that Biden, formerly Biden, in reality, whoever is making decisions in US on part of US, lifted their restrictions on long-range strikes deep into Russian territory with their Western or US-made weapon systems. And now we have this report that first such attack took place. Now, I guess many people, if not everybody, is awaiting for potential Russian response on that, on this new level of escalation. A couple of days ago on my Telegram, in the program News of the Day, I spoke about potential Russian retaliatory steps in case of these long-range strikes will take place. I see no reason to reiterate myself, but I guess there will be some response from Russia, and in the near future we will find out what exactly. Meanwhile, Pentagon still not confirms that they authorize use of long-range weapon systems to strike deep into Russian territory, or that such a strike already took place. Very strange situation in this regard. According to media reports, Western media reports, first of all, US, UK and France already authorized such strikes, but none of the capitals of these 3 countries are officially confirming this information. It's several days now passed since the first reports on the matter, and still no official confirmation on that. While, strangely enough, head of EU diplomacy, Josep Borrell, confirmed, by the way, information that US and several European states actually authorized use of long-range weapons of their production for strikes deep into Russian territory, and number of other countries, according to Josep Borrell, are considering such a step to be taken. And it's not just Josep Borrell, but Zelensky himself, head of Western-controlled Kiev regime, also acknowledged that Kiev has permission to launch long-range strikes, as they did already last night at 3:25, when those 6 ATACMS were launched towards Bryansk region. So Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky has claimed that several Western countries have given Kyiv permission to use their long-range missiles against internationally recognized Russian territory. The New York Times reported on Sunday that US President Joe Biden had lifted some restrictions on the use of US-provided ATACMS missiles. The White House has neither confirmed nor denied the New York Times article, which cited anonymous forces. Now that there are relevant decisions, not just in the media, but also from the relevant countries, it is very important to add to these decisions the number of opportunities with which we can reduce the military potential of the Russian Federation, wherever it is. Zelensky said on Tuesday at the press conference in Kiev. So therefore, he confirmed that at least several countries authorized Kyiv regime to use long-range, Western long-range weapon systems. And we know what these countries are, isn't it? Only 3 countries at this point, as far as we know, provided Kyiv regime with long-range missiles. This is US, France, and UK. And Germany is still considering, at least formally, officially, to deliver its Taurus long-range missiles. But US already delivered the ATACMS, also missiles for HIMARS MLRS with a range of more than 100 kilometers. Also, reports are that potentially a US delivered to Kyiv regime JASSM cruise missiles, also that are somewhat similar with the British and the French Storm Shadow and Scalp-G missiles that also were delivered to Kyiv-controlled territory, right? So we know about which countries Zelensky is talking about. It's US, France, UK, right? But surprisingly, yet again, none of the capitals of these countries officially confirmed that they authorized long-range strikes, and in case of US, Pentagon even refusing to admit factual information that ATACMS missiles already were used to strike Russia's Bryansk region. Very strange situation, by the way. Definitely next level of escalation, and as I said, the entire world now is watching on Russia and expecting some strong steps to be taken as a retaliatory measure, especially after numerous high-ranking officials here stated previously that if long-range strikes will take place, Russia will see it as a direct attack of NATO member states on Russia, and appropriate measures will be taken. I guess it will most likely not take too long before we will find out what kind of retaliatory measures will be put in place by Russian leadership and militaries. RT is reporting that we have a first reaction on ATACMS strikes on Bryansk region from a foreign ministry. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov himself commented on the matter, and well, let's go through this news. The West appears to be working towards escalating the Ukraine conflict. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said, excuse me, following reports that US-made ATACMS missiles were used in attack on Russia's Bryansk region. The attack came after US President Joe Biden reportedly authorized the use of American-supplied weapons to strike deep into Russian territory last week. Speaking to journalists on Tuesday, Lavrov admitted that he had no way to confirm whether the media reports regarding Biden's permission granted to Kyiv were true. However, he suggested that ATACMS strikes on Bryansk region were a clear sign that they want escalation. It is impossible to use their technologically complex ATACMS launchers without the help of US, Lavrov noted, recalling Russian President Vladimir Putin's prior warning that Moscow would be forced to change its position if Ukraine received permissions to use long-range Western weapons against Russian territory. This is a reaction from Foreign Ministry. And today probably some more statements will be made, but I guess world is anticipating not necessarily the statements, because there was so many of them. World expects some strong steps to be taken by Moscow, I guess, because many people understand that if Western ruling class is not stopped now, they will go ahead with their even higher level of escalation with Russia. And what that's gonna be, in my personal opinion, next level of escalation will be deployment of nukes. And Western media outlets not randomly start publishing articles about Kyiv regime's potential to create hundreds of nuclear warheads if they want to, because in my opinion, with such articles in the Western media outlets, Western ruling class is definitely lay down ground for exactly that next level of escalation, which will be deployment of these so-called dirty bombs that formerly Kyiv regime, with assistance of NATO member states, definitely are capable of creating and then deploying, because one should keep in mind that there are quite a number of nuclear facilities on Kyiv controlled territory, nuclear power stations. And recently, as I just said, Times reported that some think tanks already presented to high-ranking officials in the Kyiv regime some ideas how they can create several hundred low-yield atomic bombs, somewhat similar to Fatman, ones that, but with lower yield. And Fatman was of course, Fatman is a nuclear bomb that US dropped on Nagasaki, right? So that's potentially the next level of escalation that the Western ruling class most likely are willing to take if they are not stopped right now. Because what else they gonna do? They send quite a number of weapon systems to Kyiv regime, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, aircrafts, long-range missiles. They deploy thousands of mercenaries, right? What else? What is the next level of escalation? It seems to me that, well, next level is deployment of these atomic bombs. And the situation is already dangerous, but yet again, once Kyiv will start using, formally Kyiv, in reality NATO, start using nuclear weapons against Russia, then I don't know, man. I guess that will be game over for all of humanity, right? So let's see, by the way, let's see how will Russia respond. RIA Novosti is reporting, meanwhile, that according to Western publications, in this particular case, Times, Kyiv regime has about 50 ATACMS missiles right now in its disposal. I don't know how trustworthy Times is, but maybe Kyiv regime has like 100 or 200, who knows really how many ATACMS were delivered to Kyiv regime by NATO or some other long-range weapons. One should keep in mind that in a so-called victory plan, Kyiv regime demanded basically from US even Tomahawk missiles that has a range in thousands of kilometers, right? And with current pace of escalation that we are observing, I'm really not going to be surprised if we will find out sometime in upcoming days or weeks that US actually transferred even ATACMS, not ATACMS, but even Tomahawk cruise missiles to Kyiv regime. That may happen because, yet again, they have no reverse gear, those people that are in charge of collective West, right? And as long as they are escalating with Russia with impunity, they can continue to do so because they are obsessed with Russia. They want to achieve strategical defeat of Russia by any means necessary. And they are quite open on this matter, isn't it? But when it comes to ATACMS, yes, Times is reporting that Kyiv regime might have about 50 missiles at this point. which is still quite a lot, by the way, right? 50 missiles can cause significant casualties, significant damage in a radius of in range of 300 kilometers, right? So it is a significant weapon system, by the way. If anyone starts downgrading potential of ATACMS missiles or Storm Shadow missiles or Scalp PG missiles, they probably have no idea what they are talking about. Yes, Russian air defense systems are well capable of dealing with these aerial targets, but every now and then, unfortunately, even drones are managing, even drones are managing to somehow bypass air defense systems, because there is no such a system in this world that can intercept 100% of aerial targets always. There is no such system in this world, right, in existence. And no matter how good Russian air defense systems are, unfortunately, there is always a risk that missile or drone may manage to bypass Russian air defense systems. So these long-range missiles are a real threat for Russian people, for Russian citizens, and for Russia, obviously. And we also have this report from TASS that Pentagon announced yet another military aid package for Kiev regime, this time for 275 million US dollars. I guess this is some sort of emergency military aid package. And the Kiev regime will receive missiles, air defense missiles, HIMARS missiles, and I remind you, dear friends, that ATACMS ballistic missiles are launched from HIMARS, or launched by HIMARS launcher. And also Kiev regime will receive 105 and 155 millimeter artillery shells and some more weapons and munition. Meanwhile, while Kiev regime and Western backers basically of the Kiev regime, Washington, London, and Paris, first of all, are escalating on a whole new level with Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin approved the updated version of the Russia's nuclear doctrine. So Russian President Vladimir Putin, yesterday, by the way, has authorized the new nuclear doctrine, bringing into force changes he first announced in September. The order was published on Tuesday alongside a revised version of the key military document. According to a new doctrine, Russia may use nuclear deterrence to prevent aggression by hostile powers and military blocs that possess weapons of mass destruction or large arsenals of conventional weapons. Countries that provide their sovereign space for other parties to prepare and launch an attacks against Russia are subject to their policy as well. An attack by a single member of the bloc, including one that does not have a nuclear weapon, will be considered an attack by the entire collective. The same would apply where a nation that does not formally belong to a military organization is backed by nuclear power. Russia's goal is to make sure that the potential aggressor realizes that retaliation will be inevitable if the country were attacked. The doctrine said Russian military allies will enjoy the same protection. So Russia has a new military doctrine now, and according to this doctrine, if I'm reading it correctly, by the way, right now at this moment, Russian leadership, President of Russian Federation, has every legal means to deploy whatever weapon systems he will find necessary, including nuclear weapons, to deal with the enemies of Russia, because Russia is actually under attack of a non-nuclear country that enjoys support of not just one, but actually three nuclear powers, right? And Russia is under not just under attacks of not just long-range missiles, but also under attacks of long-range aerial vehicles, manned or unmanned, which is also can be reasoning to deploy nuclear weapons according to this nuclear updated nuclear doctrine. Yet again, I'm quite sure Russia will retaliate on this new level of escalation. Most likely, by the way. Of course, Putin is not sharing his plans with me, isn't it? Or Russian general staff. I cannot know for sure, but my guess is that Russia will probably, one way or another, will react on this new level of escalation by US and its allies. But what this response is going to be, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. So we will find out. We will find out. As I said, I mean, on my Patreon, I'm more free to express my opinion because it's like a private club there. But in YouTube and the Rumble updates, I will try to keep my takes on certain points, to myself. Because after all, I mean, your guess, as I said, as good as mine, right? RT is reporting also that the Kremlin urges foreign nations to study Russia's new nuclear doctrine. Foreign leaders should carefully study Russia's new nuclear doctrine, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said after President Vladimir Putin formally authorized their document published on Tuesday. Their 8-page policy statement on Russia's nuclear deterrence includes changes previewed by Putin in September, and I already spoke about those changes, at least partially. Also, by the way, RT is reporting that US National Security Advisor, or Biden's National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, is calling Kyiv regime to conscript more people. And that's exactly what Kyiv regime most likely will try. They are hunting down citizens of that failed state all around Kyiv controlled territory. And on my Telegram channel or other channels, most likely you have seen dozens of videos of mobilization in Ukrainian style, when people are literally kidnapped on the streets, in the shops, on the markets, just about everywhere, in the gyms and so on. They are taken out from buses. It's a hell what is going on Kyiv controlled territory, by the way. Quite often videos are published when during their daytime, people are filming streets in cities and towns in Kyiv controlled territory, and you can see females moving around, but you don't see that many males, because either majority of males in that settlement were forcefully mobilized, or they are just hiding, trying to avoid this forceful mobilization. Anyways, let's continue. Let's continue with some more news. TASS news agency is reporting that in the Russian Defense Ministry's latest update, we are learning that Novoselidovka settlement in DPR is liberated now and is under full Russian control. Also, by the way, yesterday evening, the Kyiv regime launched more than 40 drones, basically, to strike deep into Russian territory. 42 of them were intercepted. Unfortunately, a number of facilities were struck as a result of this attack, including civilian companies. And during the nighttime and the early hours of this morning, Russian air defense systems intercepted another 44 drones that was launched by Kyiv regime with the assistance of NATO member states to strike deep inside the Russian territory. And according to new Russian nuclear doctrine, by the way, these long-range strikes with aerial vehicles are also considered a potential trigger to deploy nuclear weapons. I'm just, highlighting that point. I don't think Russia will deploy nukes, but in legal terms, updated nuclear doctrine allows Russian president to issue such order because the country is clearly under massive attack, right? RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, as a result of these drone attacks in Voronezh region, for example, 5 drones targeted one of their industrial facilities, and 5 broke out as a result of emergency services are working on the spot to neutralize all the consequences. And reports are that in many other regions there were also some damage that was caused by this drone strike by Kiev regime and NATO. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that according to European outgoing chief of diplomacy Josep Borrell, in European peace fund, so-called peace fund for Ukraine, there is 6.6 billion euros that needs to be unblocked, and Borrell is complaining basically that these funds not yet being transferred to Kiev regime, mainly because of the position of Hungary, as far as I understand. Also, RIA Novosti is reporting that President of Brazil disappointed Western leaders during G20 summit that is taking place in Brazil, by the way. And this disappointment and even anger was caused by decision of Lula da Silva not to devote too much time to Ukraine, to the topic of Ukraine crisis. Final communique was already approved by G20, and in this communique main topics are anything but Ukraine. And therefore, European leaders, Western leaders are not happy that Ukraine was not the top priority of discussions during the G20 summit. But I don't think leader of Brazil or leaders of countries outside of the collective West really cares about position of Western ruling elites at this point, because I mean, we are clearly observing this divide, isn't it, of this world. There is a collective West on one side that wants to bully everybody, and there is the rest of the world on the other side that is led by BRICS organization. And Brazil, of course, a crucial member of the BRICS. And BRICS itself is obviously foundation, one of the foundational stones of this emerging multipolar world. So West not gonna intimidate Brazil, by the way. I mean, nah. They might try, but they will fail. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that, in Georgia, by the way, even though police cleared their area where supporters of the so-called opposition, Western-controlled opposition, were building a tent city, somewhat similar to what we see in 2014 in Maidan in Kiev. Police cleared that territory yesterday night, and yesterday during the day there was some clashes and some extremists were arrested by police, and now we are receiving reports that the so-called opposition is preparing to start their next level of escalation. And they will, unfortunately, most likely they will, because they're not gonna stop. Western ruling class is determined to destabilize Georgia, conduct regime change, and then sacrifice Georgia as a kind of second front against Russia. We all know that, and the leadership of Georgia already made a number of times, on number of occasions, very similar statements. The United States is trying to shake up the situation in Georgia, and groups of protesters have been trained in the country to solve power tasks, including an armed confrontation with law enforcement agencies. This was reported to TASS by source in the region. And then, quote, United States continues to try to sway their situation in this Transcaucasian country, Southern Caucasus country, in order to create conditions for the pro-Western opposition to come to power. The source said groups of protesters have been trained to solve power tasks, including armed confrontation with law enforcement agencies and breaking through their protected state facilities, governmental buildings, basically. And I already reported previously, by the way, earlier, that according to reports, in Georgia, dozens of individuals were deployed that undergo training, including snipers, by the way, that undergo training in Kiev-controlled territory, and some of them most likely even participate in military hostilities alongside Kiev regime against Russia. And I guess Georgia's security services are working 24/7 to find out locations of those people that are waiting for basically a green light to start operating, conducting terrorist attacks, and so on. So Georgian law enforcement agencies probably are working day and night to neutralize those groups. But Georgia is definitely in very dangerous waters right now. Meanwhile, in Abkhazia, by the way, Parliament of Republic agreed on resignation of the president, which was demanded by opposition, and I guess the situation will de-escalate now in this breakaway republic from Georgia. Although there was a high risk at one point during this confrontation in Abkhazia, at one point there was it seems like there was a high risk that this confrontation may transfer into armed conflict. But seems like situation is gonna get de-escalated now. And a few more news, dear friends. TASS news agency is reporting that Russian central bank may cut interest rates may start cutting interest rates in 2025 because it seems like inflation is under control, and expectations are that a level of inflation in 2025 will be 4.5% or 5%, and a year after, in 2026, only 4%. So, and this information can be seen as an indicator that Russian economical bloc of Russian government managed to deal with the overheating issue of economy, and they're preparing now ground or feeling comfortable enough to basically start cutting interest rates in 2025. I was expecting that we will see cutting interest rates, which is right now stands on 21%, which is quite high. I was expecting that we will see cutting interest rates in 2026, but well, I guess the situation in economy improves significantly in terms of this issue of overheating, and therefore we might see some changes in interest rates in 2025. And finally, I will share with you this news that Russian Progress MS-28 moved their International Space Station away, changed its orbit so that ICC avoided a collision with their space junk. And of course, there is tens of thousands of pieces of big and small pieces of space junk in space, and time to time all the satellites and even ICC, International Space Station, are forced to change its orbit to avoid the collision. So Progress MS-28 most likely saved their ICC, saved the day there. And dear friends, of course, many of you probably are familiar that Elon Musk's SpaceX launched the Starship 6 at the night time, last night. It was in US, it was daytime, I guess, or afternoon, I don't know. And as far as I understand, this launch was a success. By the way, this is a video of that launcher, biggest ever rocket that humanity has created. Quite impressive stuff there, for sure. And this is it, dear friends, for now. And this is it for now. Hopefully you will find this relatively short update interesting, informative, and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. This is the only way we can try at least to influence algorithm in a positive way. And if you like my work, if you want to see further development of this project, please consider to support this project with small donation through PayPal or Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page or page on Boosty. All the links on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. As I already said, later on during the day, if no technical issues, most likely I will publish on my Patreon and Boosty second news update of the day. This is it for now. Have a wonderful day and take care.